All right, folks, here's your chance to practice spanning tree protocol. If you can do this, you're well on your way to understanding spanning tree protocol's operation. So take your time. I want you to pause whatever you're watching right now. And once it's paused, take a screenshot. And then paste that screenshot into your favorite application for editing images. Grab the text tool, grab the pen tool, whatever you want in your application, and fill it in. Fill in the root bridge. Fill in the designated ports. Fill in the root ports. And ultimately, find the block ports. And when you're done, unpause. And once you've unpaused, we'll walk through this together. So now's your chance to practice and see how much you truly know about spanning tree operation. See you back in a few minutes. How did you do? You want to find out? Let's do this together. So first of all, we have to find the root bridge. And when I'm looking through this, I see priority as tied, 32,768, across all three. Then we got AABB, AABB, all the same. CC, 00, all the same. Then I see 4, 4, 5. And then 5 and 6 are root bridges over here. All right, that wasn't too painful. So that's our root bridge based on the fact that 5 here is less than 6 over here, which is completely less than all of this here, because that was 50. All right, so we're good there. The next item we want to look for is the what? Root ports. The root ports are next in line. Those are the ones with the lowest cost back to the root bridge. And we're only going to need to find root ports on what? That's right, non-root bridges. So our focus here is going to be on switch 1 and switch 2. And when I analyze this, I can see that we have a whole bunch of Ethernet ports. So all of these links have a cost of what? Ethernet is 10 megs. Therefore, it's a cost of 100. But you know what? Since they're all the same, we could call them a cost of 1. It wouldn't matter because it's the same. They're all the same. So 100 or 1 or 5 or 2, whatever you want to say to figure this out, it's up to you. So I'm thinking in my head right now, 1. Why? Because it's just easier for me to figure out 1s instead of 100s. Smaller numbers are better for me. So let's go to switch 1. Switch 1. Is Ethernet 00 or Ethernet 01 the root port? Well, if I go this way, cost of 1 or 100, however you want to think about it in your head right now, and this way is double that. So it'd be 100 plus 100 is 200. So we're definitely going to use Ethernet 0/0 as our root port. And if we go down here to switch number 3, we now have to figure out, is the root port going to be Ethernet 0/3, Ethernet 0/1, or Ethernet 0/2? Well, if we go Ethernet 0/3, it's 100 plus 100, so 200. If you go this way, it's 100 on both of them. However, I can only have one root port, so now we have to break the tie between Ethernet 01 and Ethernet 0/2. So how do we break the tie? Well, the next item to look at after cost is what? Let me write them out for you. We had cost, upstream bridge ID, and then upstream port ID. So cost is tied, so now we look at the upstream bridge ID, and, well, it's going to be the same. Because as the BPDUs come down this link and this link, they're going to have the same priority and the same MAC address in them. So we now have to examine the port ID. The port ID that is sent. So in this case, Ethernet 0/1, without making any modifications, would have a port ID of 128.1, and this would have a 128.3 by default typically. So now when we examine when switch 3 examines the BPDU and it's looking at the port ID, it sees that 128.1 is lower. So when that BPDU arrived in on that port, this port is better because the BPDU is better because it has the lower port ID coming into it from the root bridge in this case. So that means that's our root port. So we're going to label that as root port here. Excellent. So we have found our root ports. We only needed 2. Now we need to find designated ports. So we'll label this as designated port, and designated port. Why? Because they're all on the root bridge. Now, since we already have, no, I'm jumping the gun. Let's stay over here on this side. We still need a designated port over here. It's the only segment right now that's missing a designated port. So when we examine this segment and we position ourselves in the middle of it, you point, is going through switch 1 quicker or is going through switch 3 quicker? Well, if we go through switch 3, the cost is 100 plus 100. So it'd be 100 plus 100. If we go through switch 1, it's 100 plus 100. Oh boy. We have a tie again. So cost is tied. If cost is tied, let's look at the bridge ID of the upstream device. So that's why it's easier to stand in the middle. Position yourself in the middle. Now look at switch 1. Is switch 1's bridge ID lower or better than switch 3, or is it vice versa? Well, when we compare, the priorities are the exact same, but if we start breaking down the MAC address as the tiebreaker, 4 is less than 5, meaning that switch 1 has the lower bridge ID, and if we're standing in the middle of the link, we're saying that switch 1 is superior. It's better to go through switch 1. That makes that the designated port. Leaving us with what? Well, I cannot have another root bridge. Pardon me, I cannot have another root port on switch 3. I already have my root port, and I can't have a designated port here because there's already a designated port on the link. Can't have a designated port here because there's already a designated port on the link. Therefore, this is blocked, and this is blocked by spanning tree protocol. Is that the result you got? If that's the result you got, great job. If not, make sure you go back and review and figure out where you went wrong. Did you go wrong in this tie breaking process? If you did, that's okay. Work on it. And remember, cost is checked first, then upstream bridge ID. And then if that's still tied, take a look at the port ID. The only way to become an expert with spanning tree protocol is to practice and review different types of topologies as we have done here.